Have you ever looked in the mirror and not recognized the person staring back? Not because your hair's messy, not because you've aged, but because the face looking at you isn't really you. It's the version you built, one brick at a time, to survive. The version that smiles when everything inside you is screaming. The version that says I'm fine before anyone even finishes the question. The version that knows how to hide pain behind a joke or how to shift the conversation so nobody asks how you're really doing. It starts early, doesn't it? Maybe it was the first time you cried and someone told you, stop being so dramatic. Or when you showed sadness and they replied, other people have it worse. So you learned something dangerous. You learned that emotions make people uncomfortable. You learned that your pain needed to be edited before you showed it. You learned that being loved meant being easy to handle. So you built a mask. It didn't happen overnight. It was slow, silent, invisible. No one noticed when you became quieter, when you became more agreeable, when you stopped sharing. They just called you mature. They said you were strong. They were proud of how independent you'd become, but they didn't see the cost. They didn't hear the thoughts that kept you awake. They didn't know you cried only when the door was locked. And over time, the mask didn't just hide your pain, it hid you. You stopped remembering what your laughter used to sound like when it was real. You forgot what it felt like to speak freely without editing your tone. You forgot how to ask for help because you didn't know if you deserved it, because people only love the version of you that doesn't need anything, right? The version that never breaks, that always listens but never speaks, that lifts everyone else while slowly sinking. But here's the thing. The mask might protect you, but it also isolates you. It tells you that you're safe, but you're not seen. It tells you you're strong, but you're alone. And no matter how well you wear it, there's always a moment when it slips. When someone looks at you a second too long, when the silence gets too loud, when you catch yourself pretending and ask, why can't I just be real? Because being real is risky. It means you might be judged. It means someone might leave. It means opening old wounds that never fully healed. But it also means this: you might finally breathe. You might finally cry without guilt. You might finally let someone in. You might finally exist fully, honestly, beautifully. This isn't just your story, it's our story. The story of the quiet kid who became the comedian. The story of the gentle heart that became the helper. The story of the girl who was told to smile more, so she learned to smile even when she wanted to scream. We all wear masks, some so good, even we forget we're wearing them. But if you're still reading this, maybe a part of you is ready to take it off. Not all at once, not in front of everyone, but just enough to let a little air in. Just enough to feel what you've been hiding. This channel, this space, this moment. It's not about perfection. It's not about being fixed. It's about being honest. So here's your permission to feel, to be messy, to not have all the answers, to say I'm not okay and not apologize for it. Because healing doesn't begin with fixing. It begins with acknowledging. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit that the mask is heavy. Too heavy to keep wearing forever. You don't have to drop it yet. You don't have to throw it away. Just loosen the straps. Take one deep breath and remember, you're allowed to be real, to rest without earning it, to be seen and not run. He met his younger self in memories, that little boy who smiled because it was safer than silence. And he told him, you did what you had to do, but we don't have to fake it anymore. If you've ever smiled through pain, if you've ever been the strong one until your hands gave out, if you've ever wondered if anyone sees the real you, they do now. You are not your mask. You are not the role you were forced to play. You are not weak for needing rest. You are not broken for wanting love without conditions. You are allowed to be messy, to feel deeply, to let someone else carry the weight for once. So take off the mask, even if just for a moment. Let the tears fall, let the silence speak. Let yourself be real, because there is strength in softness. There is courage in honesty, and there is freedom in finally being seen. You are not alone. You never were. You've just been waiting for someone to understand, someone to say, I see you, and you don't have to pretend anymore. Asterisk, you didn't just wake up one day afraid to feel. That fear was taught to you, not through loud words, not through punishment, but through tiny moments barely noticeable, when you cried and no one came, when you asked a question and were met with silence, when you needed comfort, but instead got, you're fine, stop overreacting. That's where it begins, not in chaos, but in absence, not in violence, but in emotional vacancy, in homes that look perfect from the outside, but are filled with tension, silence, and distance. You start to learn that your feelings are inconvenient, that your joy might be too loud, that your sadness makes people uncomfortable, that your pain is best kept private. So you adjust. You become quiet when you're hurting. You apologize for crying. You rehearse your words before speaking. You carry your heartbreak like it's your fault for feeling too much. Children are emotional sponges. They soak up whatever is in the air, not just the words spoken, but the feelings left unsaid. You notice the way your parents talked around pain, how problems were swept under the rug, how vulnerability was something to hide, not shared. You watched as love was conditional, how being good meant being agreeable, how being easy meant being silent. And over time, you formed beliefs, not consciously, but deeply. You started believing that needing people is weakness, that emotions are threats, that if you really showed yourself, no one would stay. So you built a fortress brick by brick, smile by smile, until no one, not even you, could see what was underneath. The world around you praised it. They saw you as composed, responsible, independent. They had no idea that beneath all of it, you were terrified. Terrified of being too much, too emotional, too needy, too real. And so, every time you wanted to reach out, you stopped yourself. Every time you felt anger rise, you swallowed it. Every time you felt joy, you toned it down. Because big emotions were never safe in your world, and so the mask grew thicker, the walls grew taller, and the real you became a whisper in your own story. But let me say something you were probably never told. Your feelings were never the problem. The problem was the environment that didn't know how to hold them. The problem was a world that wanted you to perform, not feel, to obey, not express, to survive, not thrive. If no one mirrored your sadness with warmth, if no one sat with you in silence and just let you be, then how could you possibly know that emotions are safe? You couldn't. So don't blame yourself. Don't call yourself dramatic. Don't shame yourself for crying now. Don't minimize your trauma because others had it worse, because emotional wounds don't need to be visible to be valid. A broken spirit hurts just as much as a broken bone. And what hurts even more is never being allowed to admit it. So let's say it now. It did hurt. It was unfair. You did need more than you got, and you deserved better. You still do. But here's the hard truth. What wasn't your fault, which still became your responsibility. Not because you asked for it, but because you're the one living with it now. And the only way forward is to look back, to gently revisit the scenes you tried so hard to forget, not to relive them, but to finally understand them. To find that small version of yourself curled up, unheard, unseen, and tell them, I believe you, I see you, I'm sorry no one else did. That's where healing begins, not in fixing, not in pretending it never happened, but in finally acknowledging the truth. You were never too sensitive. You were never too much. You were never a problem to be solved. You were a child trying to survive in a world that didn't know how to love you the way you needed. And that, my friend, takes strength most people will never understand.